Hi everyone, welcome back. Now we are done with modeling the three-seater chair and the single-seater chair. We want to look at UVs. UVs. In other words, in order for us to texture any object we have in Maya, if you have a geometry of any kind and we just throw in a texture inside or wrap a texture on it, there will be some kind of stretching. So in order for us to have some kind of stretching, there's something called UVs. If we check Maya's help line and type UV, see that there's a definition here. UV is pronounced UV, a two-dimensional texture coordinate that resides with the vertex component information for polygonal and subdivision surface meshes. In essence, they are 2D texture coordinates. Now, they use the letter U and V to signify X and Y coordinates. U up for Y, V for X in 2D space instead of in 3D space. Now, they are essential in that they provide the connection between surface mesh and how image texture gets mapped on those surface mesh. What it means is this is a 3D object in a 3D space. Okay, and let's try to make a box. All right, now the information here is how do we flatten this box to be on a flat 2D surface instead of a 3D world so that we can accurately paint flat textures on it. Why so? If you check any texture you could look for online, are mostly 2D pictures. They are flat, they don't have depth. All right, so if we want to wrap any textures online from where we put them online on a 3D object in Maya, we have to make sure that the 3D object is also flat in the 2D space. So one way we could do this is could use our UV editor to unwrap our box. Let's demonstrate what I mean by that. Let's throw in I'm using V-Ray anyway for quick demonstration. Just want to throw in a quick texture. I could find anywhere on my okay, so let's have this. Okay, if we show textures in our viewport, you see that it looks cool, okay, by default. But if we have some more complex objects that have some curves and contours, for instance, if we open our should open our content browser and look for any let's get a head here. Let's pick a head. So load that up in our scene. We have this. Okay, now with this, if we just throw in a map, let's drop a map in the color section and let's throw in the same map. See that somehow there might be some kind of stretching if we subdivide this over and over, or if we tile this. Okay, I think this is already unwrapped. But most times what we'll have is we have some kind of stretching that happens, something like this. Okay, after we've modeled object, we have those stretching. If we go back to our chair, and on the chair, if we throw in a map on this, or on this one here, okay, let's have let's see if we could throw in a map on that. Voila, now you see the stretching here. This is not really cool. Even if we tile this map, and likewise this one too, there's some form of stretching of our 2D textures or map on the 3D surface. Okay, so how do we solve these type of problems? Is by using UVs. Okay, I have this here. So now see this, right? The moment that we have sort type of thing, our eye quickly catch the stuff that something is wrong here. It's not looking realistic anymore. So I've created a box for demonstration, just to demonstrate what we mean by unwrapping of 3D objects. Okay, so with this, let's say we have a box of sort nature. And we'll look for points that we could cut on our box so that we could unwrap this. It's more like if you're using a straight plane to wrap on the box. Okay, imagine if you are gifted, if you're giving a gift wrapper, okay, and you're asked to use this gift wrapper to wrap this box. So you find a way to bend this wrapper around to have minimum stretching. So that's just the procedure here. So we could look for ways to cut this box so that when we open it, it becomes flat. Instead of a 3D surface, it becomes very flat. I've shown how to do this here. Okay, this is what we want to aim in the UV editor. All right, to flatten this so that we could paint or apply maps on this. All right, then when we bring it back, we look at the 3D view, we have the map around it. So what the UV does is to flatten 3D objects in a way that they are in 2D spaces now. Okay, see how flat this is. So that's the objective. Now let's see how we could do that on our sofa. So I'm going to load that up again. Okay, I want to pick this foam first as an example. Okay, I'm going to hide the rest of it. So let's say you have this, for instance, and let's apply one of various material. We'll talk about materials later up. I also want to delete the history, as we've seen before. So we have just, could change this name to just pillow. Don't have those long names over there. So now diffuse color, I'm just going to throw in a map. In essence, this is the diffuse is the actual color we see of an object. So you could use a map to drive that channel. You could click that and you have a dialog box that pops up. Click on file. Then you have to locate where our file is in the image name. Click on the icon close to it. And here I want to use this map. Okay. So one thing to look out for is whenever you're checking up for textures, you could look for seamless textures. In essence, when you repeat such textures, you will not see a boundary within them. All right. Now there's some stretching here which is not cool. So what do we do here? We want to look at the UV editor. I'll go down to my menu bar, click on UV, and click on UV editor to open a dialog box up for us. All right, now this is how the UV is on our map. This is the map behind. This is the UV of this object. Okay, no wonder we have some kind of stretching around these areas. Okay, so what we could do is to open this up. We could open this object in the UV space and flatten it. Okay, one way to do this is to cut UV seams on the edges of the pillow, right? Both this side and the other side. Now, how do I do that? I could quickly select edges, could pick out the edge here, we'll double click this. Let's see this, double click on this to pick all the edges around it. Okay, here, and on this I could go down to UV and hit cut UV edges. So in essence, if you cut this selection of edges as our UV boundary, okay, that's one thing you need to do. But before I do this first, let me reset the UVs I have here. Let's create our own custom UVs. I'll use UV I'm going to map this by camera base based on how we're looking at it right now. Camera base, and we have this. All right, definitely we have the maximum stretching. Okay, but let's still go ahead and cut those UVs again. Okay, now we have this. I'm gonna go down to UV, cut UV seams. All right, now we see a white line going around this. This shows that this area here is a UV shell. Right, now if I hold down my right mouse button, go to UV, you see UV shell. If I click on this is one UV shell. All right, this is a UV shell. Here you see that we could move this along away from the other bunch. Our object is still in place. I'm manipulating those UV shells in the UV editor here. Okay, so with this I could unfold this. There are some functions we look at when we discuss UVs in depth. I could unfold this and unfold this too, so that there will be no stretching. All right, so one way to do this is to quickly hold on your shift button, hold on your right mouse button, and you see unfold on the left hand side. Click on unfold, or drag your cursor to unfold. You see unfold along U or fold along V. I'll use unfold along U and V, which is the center here. And here we have our map. All right, even if you don't have a map to test, you could use one of UV's checkered map to see how our object is stretching along. Okay, so if we have less stretching on this checkered map here, the better. Okay, so that's the objective, to have less stretch. Sometimes we want to rotate our UVs that will be straight, depending on the map that is mapped to the object that will see behind it. All right, now everything you see here will appear here, even close to the boundaries, like that. So we also click on this and repeat the same unfold on this one too, and rotate that guy over. Okay, so now there's less stretching on this. Okay, so that's the essence. Okay, if you do this and stretch this, you see that you start having this stretching, actually if you have objects that are stretchy. Okay, so if you have these, just unfold them and start to relax them. We will see more of this when we encounter complex objects that we model. The form seems to be simple, so the mapping on it will seem easy. So right now we will not have any stretching on the side or the back or anywhere around it. So even if we repeat the tiling on our map, like under repeat UV, we hit 3x3, see that we have like a foam. Okay, now it seems, since this is seamless map, you will not see a boundary at all, because you could repeat it and you have less boundaries. Okay, so that's one part. We could now try other ones. For instance, this one here with this. Okay, let's try and throw in the map on the Lambert shader. Let's see how it behaves. Okay, file, click on this. Voila, see this? Now this is typical. Most times when you model objects, the UV is messed up. Now if you check the UV editor for this, you see what Maya did. So imagine this is the whole backrest, okay, which is messed up, entirely messed up. Okay, so let me undock, let me reset my current workspace. Okay, now we want to try to unwrap this. Okay, one way we could do this is by default you see that Maya will tend to create some automatic UV seams for us, okay, which is not really looking the way we want. We could go to the center of this, grab all the vertices there, okay, and but first we could click this. Let's just project this in with the camera based UV setting. Click on this. Now after doing this, you see that the projection is just showing the way as we have it here in view. All right, now after this we could go down to the edges, click on the edges here, cut UV edges. In essence, you convert these edges to the UV seam. Click on that, and if we click on UV shell, you see that this is one UV shell, this is another UV shell, because we just use the center to cut the UV seams. Okay, if we go back here, we could now separate these UV shells. All right, at first you have this, which is the back, this is the front. Okay, either way we could click on this and unfold. Let's see what Maya will do for us. Okay, this is a nice unfold. Let's see a checkered pattern on this. Okay, seems good. And we'll hit this and hit unfold too, the same way. All right, this now, this does not seem to be standing upright. We'll rotate this guy over this way and have it in here. Okay, now there are two unfolds here. This is the back, the front. Okay, now because we've unfolded these things, they will not have a stretching. See, we'll solve that stretching here, but because we cut this along this area, we will see a disconnection, like a boundary on our map. Okay, so what we'll do in 3D is we fix some things, we hide these maps or these boundaries here. Okay, one way to hide this is too visible when used. Okay, so we'll cut, instead of here, we'll cut somewhere close to where we have something like this. Okay, so that boundary we hide in a junction like this. Okay, so instead of leaving it this way, what we could do is could go back and reset this again. Okay, this was done deliberately so that we'll see one common mistake an artist could make. So what we could do is grab some edges here that are hidden, grab these ones. Okay, to take you all the way around. If you remember how this was modeled. Okay, we'll grab another one too here, something around here, double click to take us round. All right, then we cut those two selection of edges as UV seams. All right, now we have this UV shell, have this UV shell, have this UV shell. Okay, now all three of these UV shells, could move them, just separate them from the UV editor, and this is the center here. Okay, so of course grab this, unfold, grab this. We're going to hit G on my keyboard, unfold. G repeats the lax command that was done in Maya, so that's one hotkey we could use there. Then these two, grab this, unfold. Okay, now we have these three things. We could pack all of them in one. We'll hold down left shift, right mouse button, and then layout, UV layout. Okay, pack all of them in one space here, one UV space. Of course, I don't want this one to be the biggest here. I'm going to scale this guy down and put these guys up. In essence, I could maximize the space I have in here. Grab all of these, scale this up. This is one here, this one down here, and place this one down here. Okay, now let's see how we're doing here. You see this? So that boundary we have initially is no longer there. Instead, it's somewhere hidden on those joints we have on our UV, like you see here. But if we repeat this pattern, if we repeat the UV map on this, go to the map, under place to the texture 18, if we repeat this to 5 by 5, okay, see that we will still have that, but it might not be too visible compared to when it's layered in the center here. Okay, so that is one way we could unwrap objects and hide the UV scene point of our object. Okay, so we could repeat this over and over for other parts of the chair. Like here, I'm still see we have some stretching around here. Okay, depending on how it was modeled or built. So that is one thing to put in mind. So yeah, but one more thing to note is sometimes, depending on the type of map we're using, in this case, this could fly as okay, right? But even in that case, we have different type of map that doesn't work well with this our UV layout. Okay, for instance, the shell at the center here, this UV shell here, okay, is mapped this way, was unwrapped this way. Rather, this might not really go well with some textures. For instance, let's change these textures to something we have here. I have this texture here. That is a closed texture. If I put it here, the front part seems good, the back looks okay, but here looks unbelievable. All right, I mean, who creates a sofa like this? Okay, in real life. So the UV shell here doesn't really make sense. So that's why in most cases you might need to cut up the shell at the center, this one here, more, and unwrap it. So what we can do is we could cut somewhere, either here, we'll cut from here, since this part will be hidden in the chair. If I should unhide other part of the chair, since that part there will be hidden in the chair, right? I could just grab that and cut from the center here. Okay, so I could either do this from here, the pattern I've used before, or I could go down to this point, look for this these edges here. Okay, that's what I have here, and cut from here. Okay, so as a way of showing you more trick, could go to the tools and I could look for, hold down my right mouse button, tools. I want to cut some UVs around there. Okay, so and if I go to cut, I'm gonna move, scale down the size of my cut tool. I'll hold down the B key and left click and drag to scale down the size of my cut tool. Okay, I'm just gonna cut something around here. Okay, I picked some edges already. Okay, we'll pick. Okay, so I have GPU issues, but hold down your right mouse button, go to tools and hit cut. If you activate a cut tool for you, have a brush in here for a cut tool. That brush has a small point here, so just click and drag on an area here to just cut the UV open. Okay, the reverse of this is our sew. Okay, could sew back joints we have there and it sews up back. So if I cut down here, okay, I've opened this UV up. I'm going to click on UV shell. So I'm going to click on the UV shell here and unfold again. And unfold. So hit unfold. Okay, so here's an unfold. Let's scale this down a little bit to have this. All right, so this is unfold. All right, so with these, if we check how it appears in our viewport, I see that okay, for the top here seems good, side seems good, but we have some kind of disconnection close to the base, like it's bending this way. All right, this side seems good, and so on. So we can still refine this further. Okay, we stretch out all of this. We'll go down to relax. Hold right mouse button with your shift key. I might go to optimize, and I think it's already optimized. Okay, all right, it's optimized here. So this is one way we could relax UVs. Okay, and in this case, this one works for what we want if we are using this map, all right, on our final project. So that is that for UV. This is just the elementary basics for UVs. We could use the same technique to unwrap other parts of our chair, all right, depending on the map we decide to use. We have different maps that we've collected. Have this, we have this, we have this, and we have this one here, and we will have this one here. Okay, try this, see that works fine. Okay, for us in some places, depending on what we want, might use some of the map that we eventually decide to use. But the essence is, if you done the correct UVs, most map should work correctly on our object. So in next class, we will create the UVs, unwrap other parts of the chair, and assign them different materials. So see you in another class. Bye for now.